Warning: the following presentation may be too sensitive for sensitive people. Please leave the room if you are suffering from post-traumatic Bitcoin freefall stress disorder. Even though this presentation has nothing to do with Bitcoins, talking about blockchains may conjure up traumatic memories. Please do not try to reenact, recreate, or reincarnate any of the following stunts. Viewer discretion is advised. No animals were harmed in making of this video. Probably. This paper can be divided into two parts. The first part talks about the organ donation process, and the second part, just ignore that, talks about blockchains and how blockchain-based organ procurement and transplant system will work. Currently, the organ sharing system looks something like this. However, for a bunch of people whose attention span has been reduced to that of a goldfish and who just want to go home, this is TMI. So let's just zoom out a little bit. This is a high-level overview of the process. A candidate for transplant registers on the waitlist. When an organ becomes available, the match program traverses the ledger to find the best candidate. The transplant happens, and the candidate has now become the recipient. Now let's talk about the blockchain part. Again, ignore that. The privilege of coming last is that now I don't have to go through the basics of blockchains like smart contract, consensus algorithm, distributed systems, decentralized system, ledger, etc. because you guys were listening to the previous presentations, right? Instead, I would like to focus on where people get confused. The distributed aspect is not the new thing. ARPANET was distributed, and that was 45 years ago. Decentralization is the novel part. Moreover, decentralization is not an on-off thing. It is a spectrum. So you can have centralized elements in a blockchain system, but the amount of control those elements have determines the level of decentralization. In fact, as an analogy to the famous CAP theorem, we have the DCS principle, which stands for decentralization, consistency, and scalability. You can only have two, where you must sacrifice on the third one. Now let's talk about the organ sharing blockchain network. It consists of the histocompatibility laboratories, the transplant hospitals, the match program, individuals, and the organ procurement organizations. The transplant hospitals will add candidates and donors and perform organ transplants. The match program will get notified when a match is needed and it will supply results. Individuals from the general public will be able to audit this network. The organ procurement organizations registers new donors and candidates, and they collect relevant information, then add it to the network. The histocompatibility laboratories runs the test and add data to the network. Advantages of this system include, but are not limited to, the following. Patient-driven interoperability. A single system will force medical organizations to enforce a standard patient data format. Secondly, it will increase government transparency. If you need me to explain why is that good, hello, President Trump. And lastly, it will remove the single point of failure from this system. If a researcher is worth a nickel, they will talk about the limitations of the research. Apart from what we have been discussing in the previous blockchain presentation, the limitations of this research are as follows. Firstly, a distributed system or a DApp with an encrypted NoSQL database might just work fine too. Secondly, on the surface, the current system looks fine as well. But a blockchain-based system can be implemented in developing countries with reasonable modifications. All in all, there are challenges to overcome, and that's why we do research. And finally, this is the list of my references and the font size, which is directly proportional to the probability of you reading them right now.